Well, the consumer price index in April rose 2.3% on an annual basis. The indicator rising less than what economists expected as many consumers watch to see how President Trump's tariffs will impact prices. Joining us now to break down the numbers, Stephen Cates, Bankrate Financial Analyst. Stephen, good to have you with us. How are you?
Thank you. Good.
Hey, what are some of the key takeaways from April's CPI's report in your estimation?
So the headline is that inflation came in cooler than expected. That's good news for consumers. That's good news for the economy. While we did have a bit of a mixed bag, certain elements like shelter and energy prices were up month over month. But overall, this is on the lower end of expectations.
As far as the inflation trend, it's slowed to the lowest rate in more than 4 years. Is this something that you expect to see in the months moving forward, or could there be a hiccup along the way?
I think we do still expect that prices will increase, or the rate of inflation will start to rise again. The Dallas Federal Reserve surveyed many businesses in Texas at the end of April, and more than 50% of them said that they plan to pass on increased costs to customers in some way. And so if we take them at their word, we can expect some prices to increase, but this is not likely to get anywhere near the rate of inflation that we saw back in 2022.
What do these mean, these rates now? As far as interest rates, the Fed, these numbers, how do they correlate to that? I know the president was still on Jerome Powell last night on his Middle Eastern trip saying, bring those rates down, even though, obviously, with the exception of making a post, really has no influence on what Jerome Powell does.
This puts the Fed in a very difficult position. I think this was neither too hot nor too cold. It neither reinforces the position that they've taken, that they want to hold rates steady, and it's not enough to change their mind. I think we're going to see that the Fed is going to stay pat and on the sidelines for multiple months.
As far as the tariffs, and I guess people were kind of waiting to see how much of an impact they would have. Did you see any reflection in these April numbers that there is an impact being felt yet, or is that still something it's still too early to tell?
At this point, it seems too early to tell. There really was very little to no impact at all from April. I think the reasoning is that much of the imports were pulled forward in the first quarter of this year. I think in April, many businesses were still working through their pre-tariff inventories. We're going to be watching how those inventories dwindle as they turn over. What is going to be the impact on manufacturing prices, on the size of inventories, on retail sales numbers? Those are going to be things that are coming up in the next few weeks.
So, Stephen, I know people in the market obviously reflected seeing a pullback of the tariffs. There's really no deal in place with China right now, but there is at least a pause, and that, again, caused the markets to reflect extremely positively. What's the next big benchmark we wait and see? I mean, getting a deal done inside of 90 days with China seems highly unlikely. So, as people are sitting back and waiting to see what happens next, what's the next big thing?
Well, I think that the administration appears to be still working with a variety of countries, including China, on moving forward with some deals, or at least getting something inked that can demonstrate, again, more progress towards that end goal. And I think that the market's going to be watching that closely. Certainly, any movement is going to send the stock market higher. But are those ultimately going to impact the economy and prices positively? They're still much, much higher than they were at the beginning of the year, and that eventually will weigh on the economy.
All right, Stephen, thank you very much. We appreciate it. That's Stephen Cates, our Bankrate Financial Analyst. Thanks for taking the time, Stephen.
My pleasure.
And we're tracking the impact of President Trump's tariffs on your wallet. You can find all those stories on our Money Watch section of our website, cbsnewyork.com.